Hello and welcome again to the Senate Government Operations Committee meeting of Thursday, January 30th. We are back on and going to meet some members of the Vermont Youth Council and talk about a potential sunset of a, well, I'll let them explain exactly what. I wasn't on this committee when, I don't believe, when this all came about. So we'll kind of welcome in, first of all, those of you, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and is there a 7? Are you a member of the council? You're not. Okay. So 6 people on Zoom who will each have however much time you need to bring us up to date on what's going on. But first, let's walk around the room and introduce ourselves, starting with the senator from Orange.
Hi, I'm Senator Larry Hart from Orange County. Hi, Claire.
Allison Clarkson, Windsor District.
Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
I'm Jillian, the committee assistant.
Hanna Duhovsky, Chittenden Central District.
And now entering, I was hoping it was Senator White.
It is not Senator White.
Senator Becca White from the Windsor District is also on the committee, and she'll be joining us momentarily. So I could follow the agenda if you all like, or you could each put your hand up in terms of order of testimony. We are here at your disposal and bring us up to date. So who wants to lead off?
I'll do a quick introduction and then I'm going to turn things over very quickly to the council members. First of all, thank you so much to Chair Collmore and to the rest of the committee for having the State Youth Council here today. My name is Nicole Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont After School, and we work with the Department of Health and the Youth Services Advisory Council to support and facilitate much of the council's doings and really just get to be here on the side and championing all that they're doing. As you said, the State Youth Council is here today to speak about their current sunset, which is set in Act 109 as February 1st, 2026. In the submitted testimony, you'll see a document that I submitted that just provides some background information and overview of how the council came to be. And much of that was really led by youth expressing their desire for more input in Vermont and to have their voices heard. And so again, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and for listening to Vermont's young people. And I'm going to turn things over to Harmony.
Hello, I'm Harmony Beldevo, and I'm the council chair of the Vermont State Youth Council. And we ask that the sunset period of Act 109, creating the State Youth Council, be repealed or extended to October 1st, 2032. The Vermont State Youth Council was formed in 2022 with the purpose of providing young Vermonters an official means of providing advice on policies that impact young persons in Vermont. And this was to ensure that Vermont's children and young people achieve their potential and that Vermont has open, effective, and inclusive government. The council is currently composed of 26 youth, and the council consists of the following 5 committees, each tasked with providing recommendations that apply to their topics: youth voice, education, equity and anti-racism, climate change, and youth mental health. And each committee has a chair who are also members of the executive committee, which creates agendas and decides priorities for the council. And since the council has been formed, we've written numerous bylaws to outline how the council should work. We've also presented recommendations to the General Assembly and the governor, and we've shared knowledge and learned from multiple legislators during our Zoom meetings. And we've also hosted one public hearing to better understand what topics Vermonters are wanting legislation to address. And additionally, we have sent out one survey to Vermont students so the council can aim to represent all Vermont students' opinions, not just those of our members. The State Youth Council plans on presenting more recommendations on legislation that we believe should be passed and recommending that legislators support certain bills. We plan on speaking with legislators and testifying at the State House more often when we support or disagree with proposed legislation. We also plan on holding more public hearings and sending out more surveys to gain a better understanding of Vermonters' needs. With so much for the council to work on during our bi-monthly virtual meetings, it's really important for council members of the future to focus entirely on the council's goals. And if we have to advocate for the extension of Act 109 too frequently, it'll detract from the time needed to craft recommendations, testify on proposed legislation, and uplift the voices of Vermont youth. The Vermont State Youth Council is important, because it bridges the gap between Vermont youth who care to benefit their state and adult legislators who are working toward the same goal. As a member of this council of driven, intelligent, and thoughtful youth advocates, I've felt like the youth of Vermont have been given a voice that legislators will listen to. This opportunity to participate in Vermont's democracy has been integral in providing me hope for the future of our Vermont communities. The State Youth Council is also important for the state of Vermont. When working in a system where adults are given the most power, it is important that youth have the opportunity to have their opinions taken into account when legislative decisions are being made that affect youth's lives. Youth make up approximately 24% of Vermont's population. If they were not rightfully represented in this legislature through the State Youth Council, this would mean a large number of Vermonters affected by legislators' decisions wouldn't have a say in it. The council is also carefully chosen to represent the diversity of youth of Vermont through location, family backgrounds, and beliefs. This allows for a diverse group of youth to share ideas and work together toward the goal of benefiting the future of Vermont. We ask you to repeal or extend until October 1st, 2032, the sunset period for the Vermont State Youth Council, in order to allow Vermont youth to work with legislators to advance the state of Vermont. Thank you.
So I know we have questions. I'll jump off if I could. How often do we listen to you, Harmony?
Could you restate the question, please?
Sure. You say that you reach out to legislators with policy suggestions, recommendations, whatever. Do you find that we listen to you often, or not maybe as often as you like in terms of what decisions are finally made?
I feel that anytime we do speak with legislators, they do listen really intently and they do show that they care. But the council is hoping to meet with legislators more often, and that is a planning part on our executive committee's part. But anytime we meet with legislators, we definitely feel like they listen well to us.
I think you have a career in politics. Yeah, that was a great answer. Senator Clarkson.
Thank you, guys. We're delighted that you exist, and I'm very keen on addressing this. But I'd really love to know, as each of you introduce yourselves, what towns you're in, so we can get a sense of how the state is represented from the areas that you're in. I also would encourage you, while it's great to speak to individual legislators, I'd encourage you to track legislation, and when you, in your 5 areas of interest, youth voice, education, equity and diversity, climate change, and mental health, really engage with those committees of jurisdiction and ask to testify as the youth council voice on those issues. I mean, for example, in Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, I have never had the youth council ask to weigh in on an issue, and we've had a lot of issues that you might have weighed in on. So I would encourage you to really track the agendas of our committees and weigh in when you feel you have something to add.
Senator Bienkowski.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and so much for the work you're doing. I have a couple questions. One, can you remind me what the current sunset date is?
26.
Right, is it October 1st?
I think it's February. February? Yeah.
It's February 1st, 2026?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. And then how long is a term for a youth council member?
It's 2 to 3 years depending on how often the member participates.
Okay. And the youth council is required by statute to report at least to this committee and the House Government Operations Committee yearly. Perfect. Okay. So my last question is how you arrived at the October 1st, 2032 new sunset date.
Halloween.
So, October 1st.
Oh, October 1st. I always love 31st. I just,
Are
Was
we
there-
comfortable? Are you able to answer that question, Harmony?
Sorry, there was an announcement over my loudspeaker.
How did you arrive at the expiration date?
The
of
new
20
sunset.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Brianne Smith arrived at that date.
Okay, well then I will ask Brianne to
Okay.
speak to that. So I just wanted to, for folks, I know I've emailed with a couple of people, but I just wanted to sort of explain the purpose of the sunset. So I remember when I was on House Government Operations, and every year we would have this really long bill that was repealing all of these boards and commissions that didn't meet anymore, or were no longer really legal under current statute, or had been absorbed into a department or agency. And it took a lot of time to kind of comb through the hundreds of boards and commissions to determine which ones were meeting their statutory requirements, which ones didn't even exist and hadn't met in 30 years. So we arrived at this new idea of setting a sunset on any board and commission so that it forced us to be accountable both to that board, to meet with you and say, hey, what are you doing? But also so the board had accountability to come and talk about what they were doing, so that if we had to address, hey, the laws have changed and we need to adjust what your jurisdiction is, or the world has changed and we need to add more members to the commission, that we had a regular check-in point for us to do that. So the sunset is not the legislature saying, we think you should go away in 2026. It's that accountability of the legislature to you to say, hey, do we need to make changes? Is this still working? Are you still getting what you need from us? And so I don't want to make you come back and advocate too soon, but I don't want to push it out so far that, because I think a lot can happen between today and 2032. And so I just want to make sure we're finding that balance. But I want to be clear, my intent is certainly that we are continuing with this work, but continuing it in a way where we're accountable to one another.
Who's up next?
Well said. And Harmony, where are you from? Because we don't, it would just be great to know where each of you is anchored.
I'm in Warren, and maybe we could give a report on what we're doing, but it maybe could be not asking to repeal a sunset, but we could still let you know what we're working on.
Yes. Well, you asked us to extend it, so that's our first
Oh, yes.
consideration.
I want to extend your
Like
sunset.
in the future.
Yes, I want to be clear that I want to do that.
Yes.
Okay, Nicole, who's up next?
I'm going to go ahead and pass to Astrid, and then we'll go to Aiden and then Claire.
And it tells us each of their committees.
Mhm.
Jillian has kindly put that.
Oh.
I've read every one of them so far.
Welcome,
Thank you for Sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
Thank you for listening to me and my fellow council members about this important subject. My name is Astrid Longstreth, and I'm the Climate Change Committee Chair. I live in West Bolton and attend Mount Mansfield Union High School as a freshman. We ask that the State Youth Council sunset period is repealed or extended to at least October of 2032. The Vermont State Youth Council is important in many ways. It gives youth a voice in what happens in our state and provides a valuable perspective on what our state needs. As more and more youth are leaving Vermont, it's more important now than ever to take action on challenges facing Vermont and Vermont youth in order to make our state a better place. Since I was young, I've always had an urge to make my voice heard and to make a difference. I've always wanted to leave my mark on the world, one that would stay long after I was gone, one that showed that I had done something to make the world a better place. The problem is, I never quite knew how to do that until 2 years ago when I heard about the State Youth Council. I knew that it might be the place for me, and ever since joining, I've felt a sense of belonging that I've never felt before, and I know that I'm not the only one. As children, when so much of our life is up to our parents and teachers, we have very little control, and we often get the impression that we can't change anything until we ourselves become adults. However, this is not true, and this is why the State Youth Council is so important. It gives youth an opportunity to use their voice in a way they were never sure how to do before and weren't given a chance to before. The council is a valuable resource to youth in the state and to the state itself. As the people who will be inheriting the state, youth's perspectives need to be taken into consideration. We are asking for the Vermont State Youth Council Sunset Act to be repealed or extended for the benefit of all Vermonters, future generations, and the future of the state. If the council ends, the state that we share will lose a valuable voice that cannot be replaced. We're asking for the next generation of youth in the state to be given the same amazing opportunity that we have been given. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll take this into consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Senator White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Astrid, thank you so much for sharing your experience with the youth council. That was very beautifully worded. And I can totally agree with the sentiment. And I had the experience that you described with the debate team. So I really appreciate that that was an opportunity you were able to take advantage of. I wanted to ask if the climate change subcommittee had specific recommendations that you wanted to let us know about now, or if you would be open to providing those at a later date. I think we are having the youth lobby, which is a separate group from you, but I think probably a lot of connected folks. They're coming to the State House on February 13th. And if possible, it would be great to have those recommendations from you by February 13th, or your attendance in the building.
Is that a Climate Solutions Caucus Day? Would it be a good idea to maybe have the youth council at the Climate
Exactly.
Solutions Caucus?
If you're able to join, that'd be great.
Well, or they could join remotely and give testimony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be.
If you're not coming.
If you, we're excited, Astrid, so let us know what you think.
So you live close by.
Yeah. So we are still kind of in progress of finalizing our recommendations, and we do have a few, but we haven't voted on them yet. So I don't think I should share them quite yet, but we could definitely share them with you at a later date. And I think joining remotely, I guess we'd have to talk about that later, but I like the idea of having some people come to represent the youth council at that event.
Yes.
It would be great if you could have your recommendations by the
Yes.
13th. That would be
I
fabulous.
will follow up. How about that, Ms. Miller? You and I could follow up, or with Astrid directly. That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Astrid. Are we going to Claire next?
I think we're going to Aiden and then Claire's going to round us out.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello, Aiden.
Before I start, I would like to apologize. I think my bell is about to ring for school, so if you hear a loud sound and kids rumbling through the hallway, that's probably them. But yeah, first of all, I'd just like to thank you all, the Government Operations Committee, for having us here today to listen to our testimonies. It really means a lot. My name is Aiden Otterman. I am the chair of the Youth Voice Committee for the Vermont State Youth Council, and I currently live in Topsom, Vermont, just like Claire. Today I am here to testify on behalf of repealing or extending the February 1st sunset period for Act 109, an act relating to the creation of the Vermont State Youth Council. I'd like to first start by sharing a quick anecdote. As a first-year member, I can vividly remember the day I met my fellow council members for the first time. It was in Randolph, Vermont, at the Vermont State Youth Council, the Vermont State University campus. I remember walking into the Langevin House on campus, which was like a big conference building. And I was completely scared out of my mind, worried if I was even qualified to be there. But when I walked in and met my peers for the first time, my worries pretty much melted away completely. I was met with a huge group of diverse, professional, and open-minded individuals who all wanted nothing but to make me feel welcome. And after going through introductions, we spent the rest of the day brainstorming ideas for the future, first in small, tiny groups, then we moved on to committees, and eventually we made it up to the whole council in the conference room. And I remember looking around the conference room and seeing probably 4 or 5 large Post-it boards that were covered top to bottom with Post-it notes that had all of our ideas and aspirations for the future. It was very overwhelming, very, very overwhelming. But nonetheless, we kept discussing. We threw out even more ideas, and eventually we started debating on what to keep and what to throw out. And we did all of it with Vermont's youth in our hearts and in our minds. So every idea was welcome, and we kind of had a criteria, unspoken criteria, subconscious, I guess you could call it, of is this idea realistic and will it resonate with Vermont's youth? And I remember just leaving that day feeling completely fulfilled. I actually had to leave early. We had to head down to Bellows Falls for a cross-country championship. And while I don't want to draw lines where they probably shouldn't be drawn, I did get a personal record on the Bellows Falls course that day.
We're so mad.
You know,
Right.
You
take that as you will. So I just wanted to share that quick little anecdote with you, or not so quick, I guess, to demonstrate that the Vermont State Youth Council has always and will always be an engaged, trusted, and professional council. We consistently prove to be an integral part of Vermont's youth civic engagement, and we, as I mentioned earlier, from day one, all of the members are completely intelligent and completely kind. They know how to get the job done, whether that job be communicating with our communities or writing well thought out recommendations for our 5 committees. We always know how to get the job done to its full potential. The State Youth Council is also one of the most important and one of the only ways that Vermont's youth can engage in their state government. So oftentimes our future lies in the hands of the council, our recommendations, and our testimonies that we give to the state, such as this one. So I would just like to say that we are a platform from which we can lift up the voices of Vermont's youth. And I think that's the most important part of it all. But if the sunset period of Act 109 comes to a close without being extended or repealed, it will be a day to remember. A day when we'll remember the loss of the voices of over 100,000 Vermonters, around 24% of our population, as Harmony said earlier. It is paramount as members of the Government Operations Committee that you guys propose some kind of legislation to repeal or extend the sunset period of Act 109. Ideally, we want it repealed or extended to October 1st of 2032. I just like to say that a quarter of Vermont's population stands to lose their voice in their state government. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aiden.
Senator Behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that you shared your experience of sort of being welcomed into the youth council. I will tell you, the first day I walked into this building, I had the exact same sense of, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I appreciate one of the things the youth council is doing, in addition to bringing really important voices, is helping prepare you to maybe sit in this space and not feel like I did.
Here.
Any other questions for Aiden?
Aiden, I think you did a very good job presenting that. I'm not sure if you know me, but I'm Larry Hart. I live on the east side, about a mile and a half from Clare. And I represent your town as well. And I love to pick on your grandfather an awful lot. So.
Okay. Who's up next, Nicole?
Last is Claire.
No, you've got 2 more. Two
I'm
more.
sorry, I neglected to introduce my colleague Brianne at the very beginning. Brianne works here at Vermont After School, and she's the primary liaison with the council. My apologies to Brianne and to the committee.
We'd love to hear from her too, if she so chooses.
Okay, so Claire's next.
Yeah, Claire?
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Claire Zanstra. I'm testifying for the Vermont State Youth Council as the chair of the Youth Mental Health Committee, and I live in the town of Topsom. Before I begin, I'd like you all to know that my mother had a stroke yesterday, which was very unexpected, and so I'm a bit discombobulated and distracted. If my words don't flow right, that's probably why. So here I go. Our goal is to have the sunset period on the Vermont State Youth Council repealed or extended to October of 2032. The Vermont State Youth Council is important to the state because we take into consideration what the youth in Vermont are concerned about. We then can make informed recommendations to the legislature that reflect the youth's priorities. Being on the council so far has been a great way for me to connect with people across the state who are my age. It has also helped me meet those who share interest in politics, the state of Vermont, and making a difference in a place where there isn't always a way for young people to have a voice in policy. I cannot stress how essential and crucial having a voice is, not just for my fellow council members, but for all youth in Vermont. The council members can help encourage civic participation among young Vermonters, and this helps develop the next generation of political and community leaders who are excited to take part in government. Currently, the Vermont Youth Risk Behavior Survey shows that 1/3 of students in high school have poor mental health, and only 50% of high school students feel like they could play an important part in their communities. Given this, we ask that the legislature repeal or extend the sunset period on the Vermont State Youth Council. I promise that me and the people who will join the council after me are committed to using our voices to uplift the feelings and thoughts of the youth in Vermont. We will aim to support you in continuing to make policies that help young Vermonters thrive and make our beautiful state a great place for kids to grow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and please, on behalf of the committee, accept our concern and thoughts to you and your family, and hopefully your mom's back quickly.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Claire, you and your family are amazing.
Thank you.
Brianna, did you want to add anything? We're certainly, we've got plenty of time.
Sure. Hi, I didn't prepare anything, but I thank you for having the State Youth Council testify and share their experience on the council and why they feel it's important for the sunset period to be repealed or extended. And also thank you to the youth that testified, prepared your testimony, and took the time out of your day to testify today. I've very much enjoyed working with the Youth Council. I think that's the Youth Council is giving me so much hope for the future and so much respect for people younger than me, and I'm just grateful that I get to work with the Youth Council and support their vision for the future. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, Senator Bielski.
Awesome, thanks. I just wanted to ask you, Brian, because I think you were the one that came up with the proposed new date as to how you arrived at that date. It does seem to me to be kind of a long ways away, but I want to understand from you why.
Yeah, absolutely. I can clarify. I didn't come up with the date per se. It was an adjusted number from a previous recommendation that our a past council chair, Joshua Stearns, put forward. That was somewhere in, I want to say maybe February. I'm not sure the exact date, but we adjusted it to be the same 6-year period. So we took his recommended date from a few years ago and added a couple of years to be the same 6-year period for testifying today. And that was the date of 2032. And we chose October to fit more in the biennium period of making legislation, the October 2032 date. So it was an adjusted figure from a previous recommendation. And Nicole, if you have more to share on that. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. And it's interesting that you say it's adjusted to be more in line with the biennium. My concern with it is actually that it is while we are out of session. And so it might be actually more challenging for us to address it in 2032 as we are unlikely to be in the building. But
We could talk for sure. Nicole, I see your hand is up.
Sure, I'm happy to share a little bit more context. I think one of the things that the council has been trying to figure out for the last 2 years, as Harmony said, they spent a lot of those first 12 months, really figuring out how they were going to operate as a council. And so thinking about you all's schedule as the legislature, the schedule of young people and when they typically are available, mixed with school schedules and summers. That's part of why we were thinking about the October date. Additionally, this work is, our staff time and all the council expenses are paid through a grant with the Department of Health, which starts in October. It follows the federal fiscal calendar because there's other work that Vermont After School does that is separate from the council, but is federally funded. So we're on that cycle. So that is part of the reason why we thought about October as that start date. Certainly, council members weigh in if you have other thoughts, but we're flexible as far as what that date could be. It's really wanting to give the council enough time to focus on recommendations, to focus on being able to engage with you all, and less time thinking about like, oh, we have to work towards this sunset and what do we need to do and prepare for that. Additionally, I'll say that the council in Act 109 is required to testify and to share their recommendations with the governor and House and Senate government operations annually. So they do have that nice check-in period that happens on a regular cadence. This year it's a little bit, last year they shared in January, and this year they're planning to share a little bit later this spring, partially because they've been preparing for this work, as well as this is the first time they had new council members coming on board, which kind of changed up the timeline a little bit. So I'm happy to answer other questions as well, but council members feel free to chime in too.
I don't see anybody else's hand up. Amy, did you want to weigh in at all? You don't have to, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I first became aware of this through the efforts of Amy. So feel free if you want. If you're just assume not, that's fine too.
I'll just say one quick thing.
Sure.
Amy Schallenberger, I represent Vermont After School as a lobbyist. Just to Senator Wojciechowski's comment about not being in session in October. I think the other piece of it is that the sunset being in February puts a lot of pressure on, like it has to pass this session for a February expiration next year. And if for some reason that didn't get done, then there's no way to like deal with it. And a bill passing by February is so unlikely. And so I think we were just thinking that would give the entire legislative session in the year that it expired, for you all to consider, what you want to do.
Yes, Senator Clarkson.
It's actually not very far away. I mean, you're talking about goals and requirements in 2030. I mean, it's only 6 years away. I know, I hear you, but 3 years also seems a little short. So, anyway.
Okay. Yeah, Senator Hart.
Chair, is there a possibility that we can create a bill or whatever to extend that?
Oh yeah, that's our job.
And get that done like ASAP so we can get it done for this group, because this group's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, we know that.
This group's amazing. So let's get it done for these guys.
Okay, I don't think there's any disagreement on the committee.
We created them. We love them.
Okay.
We honor you. In case that hasn't been clear.
This is such a great moment.
I'm fairly certain there won't be a negative vote in the room.
Bipartisan.
Whatever we decide to check in with the date. And I will say to Senator Wojciechowski's point earlier, I was on that boards and commissions, I think, as well. And we set a 5-year period, if I'm remembering correctly, that each 5 years, if you're on a board or commission, you have to come back and say, hey, we're still here, we're still doing good work. Can you extend it? So that may come into play, and I hope that won't necessarily disappoint anybody on the screen. But that would get us to 2030. It's still short of your 2032 hope, but
I think that would be 2031 because their expiration is in February of 2026.
Okay, we can definitely talk about it. And
what's a year?
Being a rather fiscally conservative person, I just want to double check because I'm sure this might come up for anybody that might be doing, and we don't need a bill necessarily. Like we could probably put it in something else
or something,
and it may.
We have a bill.
More easily pass in that fashion. But I will ask, is there any sort of fiscal question that might come up. I think there's per diems involved here.
The money comes through the cannabis. It's funded by our cannabis, isn't it?
I don't believe so.
I thought after school was funded by our cannabis money.
I think Nicole might be able to help us.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support it. As part of the overview, you can find more details in that document I included. When this council was in deliberations last time when it was first being created, the Department of Health was able to step forward and they provided funds to be able to support the council. There is quite a bit of staff time that goes into this, just for the protection of young people and being able to help and facilitate all of those pieces. So there's our staff time that's also part of that cost. And I would say the Department of Health should talk with you all about what the cost is and what they would like to see moving forward, because it's their funding. So I don't want to be in a weird space to respond to that.
But
Senator Clark.
you know what your budget is. What's your budget?
Just over 100,000, and that includes the cost for the council stipends, any mileage that they have for in-person events, any costs related to venues for public hearings, those sorts of things.
Right. And do you know if you were included in the governor's budget?
I don't believe this has been included.
Okay, so that's important information, and it's good for the young people to know this too, because reinforcing our support for you means we have to advocate for you in the appropriations process, and so we have to put our money where our mouth is, supporting this effort, and so it would be very helpful for us to have that, and we'll ask the Department of
I'm guessing that Amy can probably help find that information as possible.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to help, but I think I think you will need to ask the department directly because
Yes.
they don't
We will.
respond.
That's a good idea.
And I didn't mean to make any sort of negative comment here. I think you have our full assurance
Yeah.
that we will be doing an extension of the expiry or the sunset on this. I don't think there's any question. Harmony, I see your hand is up.
I know I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I speak for myself. When I say I feel like we're all really passionate, or at least I feel really passionate about the youth council, and I wouldn't really mind not being paid a stipend if the governor wanted to conserve any funds.
It's not the governor, it's the legislature that it's appropriate. The governor suggests, but we're the ones who make the decisions about money.
And
Okay, I'm just saying I wouldn't mind not receiving stipends because I'm still really passionate about
Okay, and now I'm feeling badly about even bringing it up. I don't think you should spend any sleepless night over it, okay? I think we can probably find that money. Senator Bioff.
Yeah, absolutely. I Harmony, I appreciate that. And one of the things that I think the stipend allows is for young people who might otherwise have to be working. It makes it more accessible to people. So I do actually think it's really important, and your work is important. So paying you for that work, I actually think is pretty important. I also was just wondering, because I appreciate that there's a challenge here in the disconnect between the federal fiscal year and the state fiscal year. And I'm wondering if Vermont After School also gets any state funds that are bound to the state fiscal year.
For this specific grant, I don't believe so. I believe the department is currently paying for this out of Title V funding, which I know does have a state match, but I don't know what that process looks like on their end.
We'll find out.
So that actually brings up my next concern, and that is there any concern that the federal funding may go away?
I think that's part of the conversation that needs to be asked to the department.
Okay, I want to just make sure that we're having that conversation if that needs to be had and figuring out what we need to do in the instance those federal funds become unavailable.
I appreciate that given the past week very much.
Given the past week and Maybe.
Yeah, no, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here, and I so appreciate the work that you do. And I think wherever we land in terms of the previous boards and commissions work, and I will say that a lot of the boards and commissions that we found hadn't met in 30 years also had statutory language saying they needed to present to the legislature every year. So the sunset is again, it's not just because we don't think you're actually going to do that. It's accountability to us too, to make sure that the legislation is meeting your needs. You know, some of these things we're talking about right now, like, oh, hey, do we need to fix this, the fact that there might be federal funding missing? And I don't think in many instances, the sort of sunset presentation needs to be a huge, like, I think it could be one of your recommendations. Here's all the great work we've done this year, and we recommend you extend the sunset. So I know that sunset language is really scary. But I think that as you get your feet on the ground and start to become a really regular part of this conversation, it may well be part of your yearly report that, oh, hey, the sunset's next year. We want you to extend it because look at all this great work we did. I don't think it has to be a looming dark cloud and that's why I wanted to share some of that background to let you know that that is not what it is there for. It is not there for you to be nervous that we're trying to get rid of you. So thank you.
So how about if we do this? We'll take some testimony probably next week from the Vermont Department of Health, since we only have one more day of this week. And we'll stay in touch with your rep, Amy, to let you know when that person might be in. You are free to look in on Zoom if you want. And as soon as we get that information, I'm guessing that I could probably ask the rest of the committee members to vote to repeal the sunset and extend it to a date TBD. I don't know when the perfect date is, but it'll be at least 5 years from now, and maybe 6.
Can I ask one follow-up question? And that is when we can anticipate your recommendations and report on the work you've done in the last year in this committee?
On the 5 committees.
Yeah, I know we had such an amazing presentation from the council last year, and I'm like anxious for this year's.
Well, yeah, when are your reports due or recommendations?
Harmony, do you want to chime in about where you all are in your process? In the act, there's no specific date. It just says annually.
Okay.
But
So-
Harmony, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, right now we're finalizing our recommendations, so we have them written and we're just basically voting on them to make sure the council agrees on them before we present them. But I'm not sure the exact date that we've set them in. Maybe Brianne or Nicole.
Yeah, and you can let us know. I just think it's important for you to that your reports and recommendations are early enough in our legislative process so that we can listen to them and incorporate them if we choose.
Yes,
when I got here this morning, I had some time to kill, so I opened it up and I read every one of your written testimonies. And every one of them are written very elegant, and you spoke it very elegant, and I'm pretty proud of every one of you. Claire, be strong.
Okay,
Thanks.
everybody set? All right, excellent job today, and we'll be in touch, as they say, okay? But you have our assurance that it'll be extended.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Your time.
You bet.
Thanks for your work.
Okay, it's 3:15, and we have our next group. I think they opened the door and discovered they are going to enter a room full of people. So we'll take a
Thank you.